You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm Nikki Sims, joined by Andrew Jackson.
Good afternoon.
And I like to keep confusing him, making him think he's going to introduce himself, and then I introduce him.
But last time I got stink eye for not saying who I am.
Constantly varied.
I think I just got fired from introducing myself, is what just happened.
No. I don't know if you all know this, but I have some control issues sometimes. So, funny story, Andrew and I went golfing a couple weeks ago, and it was a blast. He's pretty decent at it. I'm the opposite of that, but it's fun. Get a good shot every now and then. So, we had a great time and got eaten alive by mosquitoes, but we were driving along. Andrew hit a good shot somewhere. We were off of the green, and you really needed your pitching wedge. All of a sudden, we couldn't find your pitching wedge.
It was gone. And we ended up driving back through 3 holes to try to find it. Fortunately, had a golf cart.
Which is probably illegal.
Yeah, I don't know. Fortunately, it was a little slow day on the course, so I didn't feel too bad. And we were about to get past anyway, so I figure we'll just take that opportunity to go back. Could not find it.
We stopped. We asked the people behind us. We asked Rand and Fanny. They didn't have it. So we went back another hole.
I just gave up for the day. I was using my 9-iron for the most part. I also had a sand wedge, so I kind of switched over to that instead of the pitching wedge from then on. But thank goodness Nance came to the rescue. We were like on the last hole, and she comes ripping up in the golf cart, probably going like 40 miles an hour. I'm just going to Reynolds exaggerate. Like she was probably going 60 miles an hour.
Absolutely.
Shaking the club, hanging out. Hey, it's yours. Pulls up. There it was. She found it. Saved the day.
And then you got an ace after that.
Yes. And then I hit a hole in one on a par 5.
Off the tee
with my putter.
With a pitching wedge.
Actually, it was my putter.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I just watched a video this morning of a long range or the longest drive world record holder or champ, at least from 2022. And he hit a 327-yard putter drive.
That is insane.
Just messing around on one of those indoor courses.
Insane.
Anyways.
Golf is
so, golfing and lifting. Is that what we're talking about today?
Well, we're talking, golfing and lifting. And we're talking about things that you kind of do and live with as you work towards retirement. One of them is golfing. The other one is back pain.
I broke my back.
And now that we've talked about golfing, we can talk about back pain.
I think it's the spinal. If anybody hasn't seen the Mike Tyson interview post-fight of him talking about it, breaking his back, it's wonderful.
It's so good. It's amazing. And we have to talk about this because I think more than half of the population or something, some crazy amount of people deal with back pain at some point in their lives. Actually, there's a stat here. Back pain impacts 540 million people around the globe at any one time. And I guess 5% of those people that'll develop into long-term chronic back issues. And we work with people who come to us having dealt with back pain. It develops over time because I think it just happens from being alive and having a back, from what I can understand. And then you have to figure out what to do with it because you can sit around and not do anything and just atrophy and be sad, or you can be sad for a little while and then do something different and still have muscle. So
yeah,
it's a real thing. And I know a lot of people deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those choices that you have to make about what type of experience you want to have with pain. Do you want to be in pain and be weak, or have pain and be strong? Because at some point in your life, you're probably going to have some sort of pain. And for many, many people, it's going to be your back. And I think it's one of those things where a lot of people in our community perceive it as being lifting related, but I'm sure everybody has a friend or a family member that threw out their back at some point. I can vividly remember my dad being laid up on the couch for like 2 weeks because his doctor told him, don't do anything. You threw your back out.
Oh
So
my gosh.
got to sit on the couch for a week or two, let it heal,
Yeah.
which was probably one of the worst things
Probably not helpful.
that he could have done.
And FYI, Andrew's dad now, Wayne,
Yep.
is
Big Wayne.
deadlifting how much?
His PR, I think, was 375 about a year ago. We haven't really pushed the heavy singles in a while. I think he could have, somebody held a gun to his head. He probably could have pulled 405 when he was at his peak about a year ago.
Yeah.
But he's not really interested.
He's 72?
Yeah, 72 now. Yep. Yeah, training like a beast. He's squatting, pressing, benching, deadlifting. Super strong guy. Squats mid 200s for 3x5. Deadlifts well over 500. 315, 225 squat and 315 deadlifters is sort of like I just got back from vacation and now I'm gonna.
He just got back from playing golf.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll have an off workout now and he'll be like, might have been because I played 2 rounds this morning and then went into my bench workout. And we go, okay, Dad.
Okay.
That might have been a factor. I don't know. But yeah, he's crushing it. It's awesome working with him.
I remember, speaking of dad's backs going out, when I was much younger, we were all staying at my cousin's house in Long Island. And, everywhere you live in New York is just really teeny. So it's me and my parents and then my brother and sister. So 5 of us staying in like one bedroom in this little house. And my dad's back went out. And I remember he was like looking for something on the floor of the closet.
Yeah.
So he was just on all fours and we were all just cracking up dying because he couldn't freaking move. I don't know what came of it, but just like, who knows what he was doing? He was probably trying to find the pump for an air mattress or something ridiculous.
Yeah, the classic story, picking up the keys, picking up a basket of laundry, something where you bend over to do some random task and you just can't get up.
Yeah. Your back's like, not today, friend. Not today.
Our stories were a little bit different though, right? Like
Ours are a little different.
You've been fighting back pain for 3 years now, right in the middle of COVID, right?
Yeah, I think the saga started, in March of 2020. And I kind of blame it on, I don't really have anything to back this up, but it occurred while I was hammering jujitsu and hammering lifting. I was going real heavy in each and I was pretty lean. And I had just turned like 35. So just convergence of factors there that probably had to do with it. I can't pinpoint any one specific incident. I think it was something that happened then. And what about yours?
Also coming up on 3 years. Mine was a little bit later in the year. Actually, 2020 ended up being one of my best
It was a year of PRs.
lifting years ever. I hit just about all my lifetime PRs. 505 squat, 600-pound deadlift, 407 bench, 270 overhead press, tons of rep PRs, was crushing it. And I think it was either the fall of that year where I had my first little twinge. And then kind of similar to yours, I sort of kept going back to it. And then I had a really big kind of pop moment doing the 260. So just shy of 600-pound, 260 kilo, just shy of 600-pound deadlift attempt for a USSF competition where I had like a 10-second grind and I felt a little pop. And then it kind of seemed to spiral down from there throughout 2021. To varying degrees. And similarly, I think it was a lot of different factors. All through 2020, I had been cutting weight, from about 260 down to my lightest, I was like 236. COVID's going on. I was moving, tons of life stress, relationship stress.
So much life stress.
Daughter stress, going through COVID. And so I wonder if it was just the combination of all of those things, as well as redlining my training and being 44, that something kind of gave. So, and since then it's just sort of been off and on again, and still kind of lingering to varying degrees now.
Yeah.
Depending on what side of the bed I wake up.
Right. And we can kind of laugh about it a bit more now, but it took a lot of processing and emotions to get on the other side of it. You have to really choose how to respond in the moment where it's at its worst. There's a whole identity crisis. We train with the barbell. And for me, I got to the point where I couldn't lift any weight for it to be useful or not painful. And it's like, okay, this is my entire career. This is how I connect with an important physical expression for myself. The way I look is closely tied to this. I like looking like I train. And all of a sudden, that option was just completely gone. And it was a really difficult couple of years navigating that, because the gym, being such a wonderful place for me, turned into like a literal pain cave.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work, different coaches, different approaches, millions of different exercises to kind of get onto a different side of it. And it's just part of my training now. And I have to, still be proud of what I accomplished, even though my training looks so different now. I remember lots of periods of frustration for you, like watching like the first couple inches of a deadlift being like just on pins and needles. I would hold my breath like, how is this going to go? Because that was like a real iffy part of your deadlift for you.
Yeah, I never got anything formally diagnosed, so I don't know if I'm totally correct here, but certainly sciatica-like symptoms where just even bending over to get into the setup position of the deadlift would send pain down my leg, kind of like tingling and shooting pain. And then that bar was in the middle of my shin on the deadlift was bizarre. It was like I couldn't contract muscle.
It was like dead. It's like becomes a dead zone.
Yeah, the bar would just like fly up. It wasn't that the weight it wasn't even that heavy. I'm talking like mid 300s, it would start to flare up. Like it was right around putting 3 plates on. I could start to feel it. And then, 405 on a deadlift for me was like,
Still warming up.
just a warm up. I'm just putting 1 plate on a time. And that became glued to the floor kind of weight, which was, like you said, kind of an identity challenge.
Yeah.
Not only was that a weight that was just, inconsequential before, but it was like fun to lift those weights, all the way up to like hitting 500 was kind of like, okay, time to start getting kind of serious and let's get the music going and get fired up. And now I can't put anything into it. Like that was the other really hard thing to get used to, was being tentative or feeling like I wasn't sure whether it was going to hurt.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody who's listening to this watches Sex and the City, but there's this part where there's this episode where Charlotte's husband is just constantly dealing with erectile dysfunction, and she finally starts to have some success, and he just gets obsessed with how well it's going, or really sensitive to when it's not going well. And she was just, there's a part where she's just venting to her friend. She's like, just have to wonder, we're always walking on eggshells around the the member, and we know it's always about the member. What's it going to be like today? Oh, don't want to do this about it. How about we do this? And what's going to happen today? Like,
yeah,
that's how I felt about my back. Is like, okay, so what's the back need today? Should we do this for the back? Is this going to be okay around the back? Like, should I talk like this around the back? And it was just like walking on eggshells all the time. And it's exhausting.
You had to go through some like change in self-talk about your pain, right?
Yeah, I was always like, part of me wanted to ignore it, but like ignoring it didn't really work well, because I think things just got kind of worse. But I like didn't want my training to always be focused around it. Like even with feedback with my coach, I like didn't want it to be the topic of feedback all the time. And my coach was, being completely supportive.
Right.
Like that's what she was needing to do. But I was just so tired of it being a focal point. But at the same time, I needed to find things that I could do that didn't piss it off. And so it just like, you really have to go in with this blank slate, being like you really can't have any hopes or dreams or expectations beyond like, I am going to do something in the gym today. And then you really have to explore, okay, what's it going to be today? What's going to feel okay?
Yeah, I made a post in the midst of that saga for me about that mindset needing to be train curious.
Oh yeah, I remember this. That was good.
You kind of have to go into each session with an open mind about what you're going to be able to do. And before the back saga, I had a 6-year knee saga.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of practice with this before, where, it was like somebody was stabbing me in the patella with a Bowie knife every time I'd squat or snatch. And I kept going. And eventually it just went away. And I am somewhat experiencing the same thing with my back. It's just slowly, very slowly fading away. But in the meantime, I kind of show up to every session wondering what it's going to be like today. And for the most part, trying to continue to progressively overload. But some days you just kind of have to accept that it's not happening. Those are hard days because you're so used to thinking that it's a mental exercise of just pushing through it, like just grind for 5 seconds kind of a thing. But some days it's just not going to be there and you kind of have to roll with the punches.
And is it worth it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You get diminishing returns from pushing through certain kinds of pain. But I knew motion is lotion, to borrow from Dr. Deaton, that doing something was going to be better than nothing, and continuing to work with my coach to find ways to work around it or find different set and rep schemes or find different movement patterns or variations that would allow me to get through as much work as possible. I think the hardest part for me was just letting go of the ego, the identity that I should be a 500-pound deadlifter. It took me, I just actually deadlifted 500 pounds a couple of weeks ago for the first time, I think in over a year. And that was pretty fun.
It was awesome.
It was nice. Nice to, stroke the ego again.
Yeah, looked really good.
That, after having to let go of being a 500-pound deadlifter, it came back.
Can't white knuckle it.
Yeah. So hopeful that the same experience will be true for you. I mean, you've basically gotten to a point where you do not squat or deadlift now, right?
I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm also still in a spot where I'm like, not sure if I want to put that back in. I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying my training right now.
Nice.
I'm remind myself to be proud of what I've done. Like, I hit all my things that I want to hit. Like, I squatted 300. I bench pressed 200. I've deadlifted 430. Didn't get to my 440, but also 430 is pretty neat. And I've done 100-pound chin up. Like, those are cool. And I got my purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, sure, there was another future where I had gone further in all of those, but pretty cool. I'll take those. And I also trained for a decade. So I feel like I've paid my dues. And if I want to do those things again, like, I think I'll get back into a point where it might be the right time. But, it's kind of between like a back thing and then a shoulder injury that I got in jiu-jitsu. I'm just like so fed up about dancing around injuries that I just want like training to not be a huge part of my time in the gym. Like, there were times when I would go and I would set up for a bench and I just knew it hurt so much that I would just start crying. And the best thing to do then was to leave the gym and go on a walk and then try it again the next day. And that worked great. Like, knowing that you have permission to do that, I think is super important to remember. Like, if it turns into that big of an emotional state, just put it away for the day, go on a walk, do something that feels nice, come back tomorrow. You really will be surprised at how much better you can do the next day. It's amazing.
The thing that comes to my mind is the criteria that get us to the squat and the deadlift of wanting to use the most muscle mass, a large range of motion. And the key part of that for me has always been the largest effective range of motion. And if a lift is not effective, meaning that you can't lift very much weight, or if you do, you're in excruciating pain that leaves you in a debilitated state for the rest of the day, week or month, that's not very effective. So, I think you're still training just as hard, if not harder, with the programming that you're doing, at least from what I can see now. And it's accomplishing the goal that you're truly after, which is getting stronger and building muscle mass. So it's,
my Instagram is probably way more annoying because like I'm not posting like videos of me deadlifting 315 for reps. It's just me like doing dumb flexes, but it's fun for me, which is what matters.
Well, you're shifting into the muscle mommy category. So I don't know if you realize that, but flexing on Instagram is pretty popular.
For all of our boomers, I think that just means if you are the mother of muscles.
Instead of the mother of dragons, you're the mother of muscles.
Yeah. So I would say, I'd be curious, what are your, like, if you could sum up 3 pieces of advice for people who are dealing with any kind of back pain what would you tell them?
Number one, don't stop.
Get it.
Yeah, I think is crucial. Talked about that already. And so maybe a part two to that is let's keep moving. Find something you can do. I actually think that a big part of what's helped over the last year for me is that I started my 10,000 steps a day journey. And I do think that that actually helps. Just walking helps. And I can kind of warm my back up. I like to walk first thing in the morning, and that just kind of gets things loosened up. So don't stop training. And then also, I think finding ways to move, whether it be walking or, some sort of stretching or yoga, where it just gets you through those ranges of motion without it being catastrophic, I think is really been helpful for me. For a long time, any activity that required that I bend over at all at the waist, even just washing my hands would sometimes be like this thing where I felt like I had to Valsalva brace, bend over like.
Yep.
And so adding activities in the day that were not just lifting heavy weights, I think were useful. And that was a big part of my life beforehand. I've always been active in other ways. And sometimes I wonder if those other activities kind of migrating out of my day over time were detrimental, because when I started lifting, I was very mobile, had a lot of flexibility and range of motion beyond just the barbell movements. And so I found adding some of those things back in. 3, I guess, would be the mindset thing. And one of the biggest growth opportunities that I've taken away from the last 3 years is to deprioritize the weight on the bar and prioritize accumulating hard sets, and doing so with whatever weight is on the bar. So I only look at weight on the bar now as a function of getting me to a hard set faster. It's an enabler. There's no implicit meaning about 315 or 405 or 500 to me anymore. I like it. There's still a part of me that's like, oh, that was cool, 500. But I don't have that same kind of ego or identity that is associated with those weights anymore. Like when I'm lifting for the day, sort of that train curious mentality. I'm just really kind of recognizing that there's a certain amount of weight on the bar, and I certainly still have goals that I think are going to be useful for the day. But if it ends up being less than that or more than that, kind of like our hypertrophy conversation on the last podcast, I'm looking for the weight to enable me to push to get to failure without having to do a zillion reps. It's really what it is. So if I'm limited because something's hurting for the day, or I'm not feeling it, as long as I can get a good workout in and it keeps me moving, then I think it's a productive session. So keep going, don't stop, find movements that you can do, like day-to-day kind of movement, and shifting a mindset about what weight on the bar means. Those are kind of the 3. I'm not articulating that very well, but those 3 that I think come to mind. How about you?
You picked some really good ones. The mindset one comes up big time for me, where it's totally okay to have emotions about being in pain. Like, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It impacts your entire life, and it can really bleed into your life in a negative way. And it's definitely an exercise, like letting yourself have those emotions. I really do think you need to let yourself have those emotions, like anger, fear, insecurity, tiredness, exhaustion, frustration. Like, feel them. And doing that kind of allows you to be more in that curious state where you're like, okay, now what can I do? But if you're constantly like ignoring that, I think it can start to overtake things a bit too much, and you're going to come out on the other side of this. So like, let yourself experience those emotions. Time is a really good friend of yours. Like, if you keep moving, like what Andrew just said, time is wonderful. Like, 2 months will pass and something will be different. There were movements that you used to not be able to do that now you can do. or a new thing you learned about to try and make it feel better, a new breathing exercise, a new rehab protocol, a new coach. Time is a really good friend of yours. So know that it will be different if you are letting yourself feel emotions and moving in some way. Be open-minded about how, this is similar to yours, like be open-minded about how you can accomplish your goals. It might look a lot different than what you were doing that was working. But if you root around to what the important part of it is, you can get there in another way and you can learn something new. Be patient with yourself, because whenever you go into something new, it's just like, well, how do I set this equipment up? And this is different. And, all this like blank slate that you have to kind of feel out. But be patient with yourself and like know that you can get there in a different path. And you will get to the other side of it. You will. It'll be different. It may take some time, but you'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say that confidently on the other side of 2 long pain sagas, both my knee and my back. They both resolved themselves, and I'm excited about training again. You talked a lot about that shift that you went through. I think we talked about this before, that you had to find play from a different part of your life.
Yes.
And I kind of had to go through a similar thing, but I'm excited now that lifting is starting to feel a little bit more like the play part of my day, where I can start to attack the weights a little bit more and I'm not so tentative. And yeah, it's fun to feel that coming back, and also know that I have the gear to be able to get through the other phase also, I should say. But yeah, hang in there. It gets better.
It does. It gets good.
And if you need some help, reach out to experience at barbelllogic.com.
Yeah, it might be worth doing an experience call. Go to our website. You can schedule a call. You'll either be with me, Chrissy, or Nikki. And we're just like, it doesn't even have to be like learning about what it's like to train with a coach at Barbell Logic. We are coaches. We can just talk with you about how your training's been. If you have questions, like, we're more than happy to help. It's like, we are fulfilled when someone figures out that they can lift and how to train and knows more to do about it. So schedule an experience call.
Yeah, and depending on what type of pain you have, sometimes just one small adjustment can really completely change the experience. I've worked with people where you just adjust the stance a little bit, change the setup for the deadlift a little bit, widen the grip, or, adjust the grip on a bench or a press. Sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot, and all of a sudden you completely clear something up.
And we'll look at your videos on those calls, which is it's like a really nice free form check.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, good luck with the rest of your back recovery.
Feeling good. Sneezing doesn't feel dangerous.
We should have talked about sneezing. That is the most frustrating part about back pain, because I have the most violent dad sneezes,
Bro.
And
it's amazing.
It's brutal. I'm still getting that. I still have the sneeze pain occasionally, but I try to go into flexion, because for me, it's the extension that kills me. But go into flexion and not crap my pants. And that's how I sneeze now. It's like,
They're amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this, leave us a review, give us 5 stars on any platform that you listen to this, and we'll see you next time.